join me and about 20 other Wise Squirrels in Franklin, Tennessee. That's just minutes from Nashville, by the way, on September 19th to the 21st this year. If you want to feel more confident, more connected, learn about new tools and techniques, this is something for us to do together in person, where you can actually meet like-minded people, including expert facilitators, by the way, who will be leading some of the curriculum as well as myself. This is going to be an incredible event, something so rewarding and something I am pumped about. You're going to be surrounded by people who get it, like-minded people, fellow Wise Squirrels, and that's going to make this event that much more impactful for you. So, to keep this event intimate, I'm capping it at 20 tickets. The first 10 are early bird tickets, and those will be discounted, so you'll save $205 on those first 10 tickets. After those 10 tickets are gone, though, we're going to go back up to the regular price. But don't worry, even the regular price is well worth the investment. Grab your ticket today to save, and I'll see you in September. And I promise I will not sing at the retreat, because nobody needs to hear that. See you soon. Welcome to Wise Squirrels, the podcast for late diagnosed adults with ADHD. I'm your host, Dave Delaney. Today on the show, I'm joined by Dr. Ari Tuckman. Ari's a psychologist with over 25 years specializing in ADHD. He's also the author of multiple books, including his most recent book, The ADHD Productivity Manual. Ari graciously agreed to give away not one, not two, but 3 copies of his audiobook version. Visit wisesquirrels.com to enter that draw now. It's only open for 1 week. We dive into how ADHD affects productivity, relationships, and even our sex lives. We explore how it can quietly erode trust, and we discuss practical ways to better know, respect, and connect yourself, whether you're neurodivergent or not. We also discuss that New York Times recent article. I'll get to that. Hey, maybe tune into this episode with your partner for bonus points. It's an eye-opening, encouraging conversation you won't want to miss. Okay, before I share the interview, I have some housekeeping to cover. I haven't begged you for a review in ages, and they are crucial to helping new listeners discover the show. I'd like to thank some recent reviewers, Robin SLO, Bliss Ninja, great name, and Holly Linky for their recent reviews on Apple Podcasts. Please take a moment now and do the same. Pretty please, with sugar on top. If you aren't following us on Substack, you're missing out. For example, I recently published an article about ADHD and entrepreneurship. As it turns out, roughly 29 to 35% of entrepreneurs have ADHD, and that's compared with about 5 to 8% of the general adult population. Yeah. I also wrote an important article about the potential side effects of psychological treatments for ADHD, inspired by a recent Russ Barkley video. Don't panic, he doesn't poo-poo treatments, but instead shares some potential problems that you should know about. And you can find those on the Substack. Just go to wisesquirrels.com, sign up, and you'll find it there. Now, Wise Squirrels is supported by our paying premium Substack members, and I couldn't do this without your support. For just a few bucks a month, it's the cost of a coffee. Not only do you support me, but you also validate what I'm doing here with Wise Squirrels. So I want to say thank you for chipping in to help. Thanks. I recently spoke with Dr. George Sachs for an upcoming episode. He's the co-founder of Inflow, our sponsor. He's awesome. You're going to learn a lot. And what he and his team are building at Inflow is truly innovative for ADHDers, and I highly recommend you check out their free ADHD traits quiz. You can also download the app. Just visit wisesquirrels.com/inflow. And they chose to continue because they're happy with the results, which is a little nod to any future sponsors. Reach out and I can give you some details. But getting back to Inflow, I think it's really cool what they're doing. And as a fellow Wise Squirrel, I know you will find it helpful. So head over to wisesquirrels.com/inflow, and we thank Inflow for their support of Wise Squirrels. And now let's hear from Ari.
I'm a psychologist. I've been working in the field of ADHD for like 25 years now, which is kind of shocking to me. And I do a whole bunch of presenting. I've got 5 books. I actually have my brand new book out is the ADHD Productivity Manual, which I'm super psyched about. Like it's hot off the presses. And yeah, I'm like really excited as always to talk ADHD and as always to talk about like getting stuff done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. I mean, I'm thrilled to speak with you, and congrats on the new book. I know it's not an easy feat writing a book in the first place, and I've been there. And so, yeah, and I'm still there with my next book, but I don't have a publishing deal with my next book. I'm self-publishing, but because of that, I also don't have a contract, and I didn't get an advance, and I don't have a legal obligation to deliver chapters on time. And so for somebody with ADHD, that makes it a little less pressing.
Yeah, that is the double-edged sword. I actually self-published this book as well because I just sort of felt like I don't know what I'm getting from a publisher, given what I'm giving and the timeline of how long it takes, and like, I don't know what I'm getting. So I've been very happy with self-publishing, but definitely you are only answerable to yourself. Like that is definitely a challenge. And, you know, I mean, it's kind of more broadly a challenge anyway of like, if you're an entrepreneur, if you work for yourself, or even just in general, like all that stuff that nobody else is sort of holding you accountable to. Like definitely those are the harder things. It's got to come from within or it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Did you were all your books self-published or some traditionally published?
No, the first 4 were, standard publishers. And then, this one, I shopped around a little bit for agents, couldn't convince any of them that, there's actually a market for another book on ADHD. So, which is actually good. Like in the end, I'm actually really glad that that's how it worked out. And then I did the whole self-publishing thing. I hired a consultant who knows the whole self-publish because I don't want to learn how to like upload and format stuff to every different account and all the blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't need to know that. I don't want to spend my time on it. So she was awesome. She did all the back end stuff, gave me advice, and like, I think again, we can draw lessons from anything, I think, but like, that was not the thing I wanted to spend my time on, right? It's not that I couldn't have done it, but like, I don't want to learn it. Like, it isn't worth my time. And then uploading it wrong and then yelling at my computer and then wasting time trying to figure out like, what is the tiny little thing that like, forget it. So, yeah.
But there's a good message there, really, which is for anyone, regardless of their neurotype. But it's, knowing your limitations, but also, delegating or outsourcing or whatever you need to do. Because especially with ADHD, I mean, I've learned this firsthand that obviously we get really hyper-focused on the work that we enjoy doing most, and then distracted by really cool outlets, and then have to remind ourselves to get back to work. But I digress. But also, we neglect the things that we know we need to do that are just not sexy. And so you've got to kind of outsource or figure out a way to make them work. And it's hard because as a solopreneur myself, like, it's really like if the trash isn't cleared out of my office tonight, it's like, well, I am also the janitor and the CEO, right? So like someone's got to do it. I love the Eisenhower matrix, which I've included on wisesquirrels.com, which I expect, you're familiar with, but that's a good, I have it. I looked up here because I have it above my wall, pinned on my wall to remind me throughout the day, like, okay, is this something important? And, something I need to be doing. So, so I've been excited to speak with you on the show and to talk about obviously ADHD. I mean, I know you've shifted focus over the years to focus a lot around couples and around intimacy and how that applies to ADHD. And then also just knowing that my audience here is, late diagnosed adults. So people that have been have been diagnosed, relatively recently. What are some thoughts on how ADHD affects intimacy? And I will preface it too. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to my interview with Melissa Orlov, but she talked. One main thing that she said that really stood out to me, because it might have rung true a little bit, is the parent-child dynamic that occurs not intentionally, but so anyway.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on all this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, look, Melissa's always great, so that's awesome. But I mean, absolutely, like it is definitely a thing that we bring all of ourselves to our relationships, right? And hopefully, in most ways, that's good. And also, we annoy each other. We want different things in different ways at different times, and that could include things like when do you load the dishwasher? It could also include things like when do we rip each other's clothes off and, have some fun. So, so definitely if you're not managing your ADHD well, it's going to affect lots of parts of your life, including, your relationship and including your sex life. Because the thing is, if you're kind of sniping at each other all day, like that's not sexy, I mean, it might be a thing of like, I definitely do want to have sex, but it's not with you. Like, I'm kind of pissed at you now. So like, don't even look at me, So part of having a better sex life is working on your relationship. And part of working on your relationship is kind of getting stuff done. So even like my productivity book is going to, I don't know, I'll just sort of say it, is going to get you laid more often. You know what I mean? Like if that, I don't want to say that should be your only motivation to work on your ADHD, but like I will take the motivations I can get that are available with clients sometimes.
You need the air quotes, get more done.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Yep. Yes. So like it does matter, but also, having fun with your partner, whether it's sex or just hanging out or going and doing something, like that's really important because again, you will annoy each other, right? Like that is a thing that happens when people live together. Sure. And like, you need those good feelings. You need that sort of well of goodwill to kind of bounce over those potholes and not get like stuck in them.
And do you find that, because I know, and obviously, and I've always prefaced this show by always adding that I'm not a doctor and nor do I play one on the internet. You are. So I will obviously lean to you here. But my understanding, at least anecdotally, is that ADHDers tend to find one another. We tend to really connect with other ADHDers. Do you find in your practice that couples tend to be both ADHDers or more like one neurodiverse and one neurotypical, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely those couples. And, on the one hand, if you both have ADHD, you have some perhaps similarity of experience and there's an understanding. It's sort of like, oh, we both grew up in the Midwest, or we're both, I don't know, hockey fans or something, whatever the similarities are. But also, and I don't know if these are overrepresented in the people I see because they're struggling more, but there is more that thing, and this is Ned Hallowell's line. I wish I could claim this was mine, but where he said those with attention deficit tend to marry those with attention excess, right? Meaning the detail-oriented, on top of stuff, thinking ahead, getting stuff done kind of people. And like, it does make sense, right? Like there's totally a complementarity. The person with ADHD obviously benefits from the structure and the consistency and the whatever, but also equally important, let us not forget this other part of it is the more sort of getting stuff done person benefits from the sort of the liveliness, the energy, the, you know what, put it down, let's do something fun also, right? Let's not wait to be 100 before we live, kind of a thing, so like there's absolutely a benefit that goes both ways in those relationships. And when you are working well together, when you feel like you're part of a team, when there's that goodwill, it's great, right? Because you don't need someone exactly like you've got that covered. The problem is when there's too big a difference, when you're not working well together, when you feel like you're in a tug of war, that's sort of a zero sum, right? Then, man, are you going to struggle?
Yeah. And that sort of gets into that, what I mentioned with Orlov, that child parent sort of dynamic. Do you come across that, or what's your take on that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like that is definitely a thing that can happen. And, you could call it parent child, you could call it overfunctioner, underfunctioner,
right?
But, you get this kind of tug of war that develops where the non-ADHD partner tends to sort of think further down the road of like, we need to take care of this and we got to take care of that. And, oh, remember, there's this thing, right? And that could be 2 days from now, we're having company over, so we should think about what we're going to cook and maybe vacuum. But it could also be things like 6 months from now, the kids are going to be off of school. Maybe we should find a summer camp that, is not, being investigated by, Child Protective Services or something, right?
Right.
So,
right. Yeah.
So, there's that, but then, the partner with ADHD, not that they don't care about these things, but it doesn't hit their radar as early, right? So there's this thing of like, okay, fine, I'll get there, or not now, or yes, I will, but then they forget to do it. And then that's the tug of war, right? So the non-ADHD partner just has way too much on their mental radar and is always sort of chasing and nagging and following up and micromanaging. And nobody wants that. Like, it sucks to do it, and it sucks to be on the receiving end of it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the time the ADHD or Wise Squirrel, as I like to say, but the ADHD feels more, can feel that they're primarily the blame for all of the problems.
Yep.
How can we blame our spouses? Asking for a friend.
Right. That's really the important thing here.
Yeah. So, how are we going to win at the end of the day?
Right.
Hey, this is Dr. George Sachs, co-founder of Inflow, a proud sponsor of Wise Squirrels. If you have ADHD, you know how tough it can be to stay on top of, mostly everything. That's why we created Inflow, an app designed by expert clinicians and people with ADHD to help you understand your brain, build habits that actually stick, and feel less alone in the process. Get the support you need with Inflow. Head to wisesquirrels.com/inflow to check it out.
So but that's the thing, right? It looks really obvious that the person with ADHD is the cause here. If you would just do a few more things earlier, then we'd have nothing to argue about, right? And it's not an insane idea, right? Like, there's some validity to that, but Of course, it's not 100% of the truth. It's 50%, right? Because every relationship is a two-person job, right? And I say this not only to make the person with ADHD feel better that they're not 100% of the blame, but also because I want the non-ADHD partner to recognize that they have agency here too, that there are things that they can do differently that will change the dynamic of what happens and allow them to be happier in the relationship. Because otherwise, the problem with saying it's all your fault, honey, you need to do is like, it's like hoping for a sunny day, right? I have as much control over what happens tomorrow on the weather as I do hoping my spouse does it different, right? And by the way, we've had 8 million conversations. If you haven't convinced them yet, I don't think today's the day. You know what I mean?
Right. And
I hate to say it also, finding some therapists who agree with you is also not going to be the thing that's going to win the day. So instead, what can each partner do differently in a variety of ways to change the dynamic of what happens so both people feel happier about how things turn out.
And what are some of those, like, let's say 3 things for each person, assuming they're, different neurotypes, let's say.
Mhm.
What are 3 things that each partner could do?
So, one of the things I talk about is this idea of, rather than making your case, make a request, right? So, we often get into these debates about things. We sort of argue the merits, right? So it could be stupid things like, do the bowls go in the upper rack or the lower rack of the dishwasher? Or it could be things like, how much money are we spending? Or how much can you spend alone without checking with your partner? Or how much sex are we having? Or what are we doing with the kids? Or, right. And, some of these are big topics that definitely require more discussion. But for some things, maybe the answer is just, what? I'm just asking you, can we just do it this way? Right? We're not going to debate whether my way is better. Right. And, like, maybe if it's sort of a thing where for you, it's not as big a deal, then you just say, like, okay, you know what? Yeah, that's fine. I'll go with you on that one. But also sometimes you're going to go with me on what I'm requesting of you. Right. In that you don't have to agree in order to do something. Right. You can just say, I understand this is important to you. It's not important to me, but you're important to me. So sure, I'm going to do something with that.
That's really helpful, actually. And I'll give you an example of that and I've mentioned it on the show before, where my wife, she's a school teacher. She's very analog and digital too. She's a librarian, so she's got to be. But so
she's in attention excess, by the way.
Oh yeah, for sure. But she's got like the magnetic calendar that she keeps on the fridge, and she diligently fills it all out with what the kids are doing and what we're doing and so on, which is great. I never ever look at it. But I also had, around that time, or maybe before even, I had started a Google Calendar, a digital calendar. Now, as an entrepreneur and a business owner, like, I need my own calendar, but then I have another one for Wise Squirrels and another one for this and that. So I created a family calendar and just asked her, like, if she wouldn't mind adding the stuff as she adds it to the written thing, to add it to the Google Calendar. And we butted heads a little bit on getting that done. And finally, I guess she gave up and just said, all right. And she started doing it. And I do it too. And I find it so incredibly helpful because I can layer on my calendars and see, okay, tonight we're doing this. And it's not just her having to add things. I add them too. So when I see things that are coming up, or maybe we're going out for dinner with a couple of friends, I'll add that to the calendar. So we always have this clear outlook of what's coming in the way that best suits us.
So let me discuss this, because there's a number of things that you going on here that make this good for you guys, right? There's a reason why there's reasons plural why this is effective. So the calendar on the fridge is great for her, and that's awesome. I'm glad she's found something that works. But it is not great for you. You say you don't look at it. I would probably go so far as to say it's invisible. You don't see it. It's just like,
well, there's food on the other end.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, so this would be a place to get caught in an argument. This is great. It's right here. You stand right in front of it. You should just look at it. Why aren't you just right? And we could be 400 years old and you're still not looking at the goddamn calendar on the fridge. Right. So, like, it's clearly not going to work as the joint calendar. So, you requesting, put it into the Google Calendar, I am much more likely to see it. If you want me to act on the things that are on the calendar, this is the better way to do it, right? Now, of course, you could make the counter argument, look, I'm putting it somewhere. Why is it my job to now do a second thing and put it in the calendar? And I will grant, okay, sure, that is a small amount of extra work for you. But I would ask you, wife, is it better for you that he shows up at the right things and knows what's going on? Is that worth the 27 seconds it takes to add it into the Google Calendar? And probably the answer is yes. If her life is better by putting it into the Google Calendar, then it's worth it to her, right?
Yeah.
She's not managing you, she's managing her own happiness. Now, your part of it is then you need to look at the goddamn Google Calendar, right? You can't then be like, oh, I didn't see it, right? Because then she's going to say, okay, why am I doing this if you're not doing your part, right? So like, it's
that's true.
definitely reasonable for her to expect you then to look at the thing that you said, this is the better way. But the thing about what I like about shared calendars for not necessarily every family, but many of them is kind of what you said, right? Here's a thing that came up, bam, put it in. None of this at dinner 7 hours from now. Oh, honey, yeah. So I ran into the neighbors, and on Sunday we're going to do a barbecue, right? Because then you get those super fun arguments of who told what and who didn't, and did you not remember, or like, so like that is just a good ADHD friendly strategy, but it's frankly just a good busy family strategy.
Right. Yeah. What are some other examples of things that couples, getting back to that, like maybe 3 things or whatever it is, like the ideas that each spouse or partner can do.
So, one of the things I definitely recommend, especially for busy families where you got kids going in a bunch of directions, and especially if your job isn't necessarily like a straight 9 to 5, like I will always be home at 5:30 kind of thing, is doing at least once a week, but doing like maybe a family meeting, depending if your kids are old enough, but at least a couples meeting of what's the deal for this week? What's coming up? What's going on? What do we need to do? Right? Because those last minute, oh my God, wait a second, I thought you were taking the kids, or like whatever. Those are the worst, because in the last moment, you don't have any options. Well, no good ones, right? As opposed to, let's say, Sunday morning or Sunday night or whatever, let's sit down, pull out the calendars. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. Look at Team Snap, really sort of figure it out. But of course, for this meeting to be effective, you had to do the pre-meeting, which is you looked at your email, so you saw what's coming. Your calendar's actually up to date with whatever, but then there's a discussion about like, what are we doing? What are we not doing? Right. And kind of, so something like, one of the kids has play rehearsal till 7, another one then has, soccer. Okay, we can't do both of those. Or they just move soccer from 7 to like 5:30, and that's in the middle of dinner. Like, okay, sorry, we're just like, this is not trials for the Olympics. Like, we're not going to soccer this week. Like, it's not worth making ourselves insane. Or we are going, and let's try to figure out how to make it happen. But like, let's talk as 2 equals in the cool of a moment, not the heat of a moment. Yeah. And let's figure out what we're doing.
So just having that kind of weekly meeting, or call it as you want, like something. Yeah. It doesn't have to be that formal necessarily, but it might be just, let's go get a beer, or let's like whatever,
I mean, the thing of it is, if you're doing this regularly, this could be 6 minutes. Yeah. Right. Like, that's it. Right. Like, it's not like this marathon.
That's a good point.
Also, it becomes a situation, and I'm sort of just thinking about this here, is kind of speaking of that parent-child dynamic. In the panic of the moment, you fall into the parent-child, because the non-ADHD partner is the person who's thinking about this stuff, realizes there's a problem, and has a lot of other balls in the air mentally that they're trying to figure out. But in a calm Sunday morning, you're 2 equals, right? We're both here. We're both talking about it. We both have preferences. We both have votes on what we're doing, right? Yeah. Like, that is much more a situation of equals, and not someone's in charge and someone's like reacting.
Yeah, that's a good point. What else? What are some other strategies?
So, obviously the thing with ADHD, it's not the knowing, it's the doing, right? Doing the right thing in the right moment, as in like, here I am, now is time to whatever, right? So, some of this, so a lot of managing ADHD is taking intentions from one moment into the future, right? So certain things, it may just be, I'm just going to do it now. Hey, honey, can you blah, blah, blah? Okay, I'll just, unless I'm really in the middle of something, like I'm just going to do it now and then it's done, right? Or if it's a thing of, can you do this thing? Or, hey, I'll take care of this and I, talk about this sort of in general in the productivity book, but this idea of showing people that you're taking it seriously, right? So if you just say, while you're like looking at your phone and your spouse is like, I will bet $1,000 if I ask them what did you just agree to? Yeah. They would have no idea, right? Yeah. But even if you're like, yes, honey, I will do that, but you don't write it down, you don't make a note, you don't do anything to capture the idea. If later you forget to do it, they're going to think to themselves reasonably, you didn't care enough to even, I just don't think you cared, right? I didn't see any action on it. I think you just didn't care. And now I'm doubly mad at you. Yeah. Whereas if you say, hold on a sec, let me write a note or let me do a thing to set a reminder or somehow do something with it, and then you forget, at least you showed that you had good intentions. I mean, it's disappointing it didn't happen, but now I'm not mad at you because I think you sort of half-assed it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I think, what happens when you land on a good strategy or a good system or a good process or application or whatever it is, mm-hmm. and I don't know enough about it besides the fact that there is this novelty curse of ADHD, which is that you find the thing that works, and then it's it works, and then suddenly you're like, I don't want to do that this way anymore.
Yeah. How many people have bullet journals with 3 pages filled out?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is there a secondary market for 97% unused bullet journals? So,
yeah.
I mean, part of it is to just recognize that novelty is always more interesting. Now, on the one hand, I could give the obvious advice of, okay, so then mix things up a bit, right? And as long as it's working, I don't care. I don't care if you write stuff on your hand if that works. Sure. If that's a reliable enough system, then do it. Yeah. But also this sort of slippery slope of novelty is, always seeking some new system just because it's new, and on the one hand, again, if that worked, great. On the other hand, if it isn't really working because you're spending time, finagling the new system rather than using it, then that's going to be a problem. Yeah. But I think that there's an element of, and this is sort of the boring answer nobody likes, but there's an element of just sort of acceptance of this system is no longer sexy. But you know what? It kind of works pretty good. So I'm just going to sort of accept that boring and reliable is sometimes okay, because while it may not be exciting, it does hopefully reduce the number of really exciting panic times, when you're like, oh my God, I didn't do that thing, right? Which is also exciting, but in a much more stressful way. So, but finding a system that is pretty reliable is definitely easy. Don't over-engineer it and make it complicated. If it's annoying to use, you won't do it. That's just human nature. So finding a system that's pretty good and then really just reminding yourself of the benefits of continuing to use it.
Yeah, and I think to your point about the bullet journals, and I've shared the story before, but the short version is I bought some great journal that's perfect for ADHDers. It's a planner and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And it looked amazing. And it even in it had all these different steps and fields to fill out and stuff in this tangible book. And it had QR codes that you could scan and watch videos explaining like different steps and different strategies. It was really cool. And I could not write my name in it. I carried it everywhere and I couldn't write my name in it. And I like literally like put my phone in another room, put my computer in another room, and just like brought it to the coffee shop even. Could not do it. I could not get started. And so I brought it to my therapist and I'm like, what do you think of this? And she's like, oh yeah, this is great. I love how the layout, I love the design. It's well thought out. And I'm like, why can't I write my damn name in it? And like, why can't I get started? And she's like, because that's not how your brain works, Dave. And I was like, what? And after this conversation, I had this light bulb moment. Now I was diagnosed like a couple of years ago. So I'm still looking at my life through the lens of ADHD and learning how my operating system works. Right. And I jotted down overwhelm in my journal, over my normal journal. Overwhelm equals paralysis equals stagnation. And then I wrote overwhelm is the enemy. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, overwhelm is definitely an enemy. I mean, there's a lot of enemies. I mean, this is one of the things I have a whole chapter on overwhelm in the new productivity book. But I mean, there's also other stuff like, you know, ambivalence and ambiguity or having too many ideas. Like there's lots of things but like, absolutely. If you're feeling cognitively overwhelmed, then you're going to feel emotionally sort of flooded by it. So, you know, those are the moments either where you just need to walk away. Like I just got to walk away, kind of like let this settle. Maybe you go for a walk or go for a run or do some push-ups or something, you know, but then sort of stepping back and figuring out like, okay, what am I doing here, right? If you're overwhelmed in the details, pull back and begin to think about the bigger picture. You know, what am I really trying to accomplish? Why does this matter? What's the important parts of this and what's kind of less important? What am I looking for or what am I trying to do? Or, right, you know, beginning to ask yourself some questions to sort of chop it down to some more manageable amount.
That's helpful. So in your work with couples, like what's a subtle way that ADHD can ADHD erode trust, you know, like not in a dramatic betrayal, but in small, like daily interactions, maybe even.
Absolutely. Like it definitely can. And, you know, I mean, there's the obvious example of sort of outright lies. You know, hey, did you call the bank today? Yeah, I did. They're going to get back. Like, no, you didn't call them, you know, or just those sort of lies of omission. Right. I didn't tell you I overdrafted the account because I forgot to make the deposit, but like I'm intentionally withholding that. And I know you would want to know that that happened. So that's a lie of omission. But, you know, separate from those sort of like outright, you know, untruths, there's also that sort of trust of, if you say you're going to do something, do I trust you that you're going to do it? You know, and even if I know you believe you will, you are telling me the truth when you say, yes, I will take care of this. Still, do I have faith that it's really going to happen? Or do I feel like, I got to remember tonight to ask him if he actually did it, even though in this moment he's swearing on a stack of Bibles. Right. Again, that's the obvious ADHD part of this, but let's also remember two-person, you know, relationships are a two-person job. There's also the other side of it of like for the non-ADHD partner, right? Are they, you know, becoming sort of over involved in the details? Are they sort of micromanaging, which also breaks trust because like you're an independent adult and I'm treating you like a kid, right? Or when tonight I ask you like, hey, did you ever make that phone call? And you're like, ah, damn it, I didn't do it. Do I then like blow up and get mad at you? Do I guilt you? Do I break into tears and fall apart? Do I ice you out for the rest of the night? Right? It's sort of like, I've got a saying, you can't punish the truth and expect honesty. So now, obviously, the non-ADHD partner isn't going to be happy about this, but there are perhaps, by which I mean definitely, better ways of responding to this moment. You know, there's also maybe better ways last night to set this up in the first place, you know, including even, you know what, my day is insane tomorrow. I don't like, I'm not going to make a promise I can't keep. Like, I genuinely, like, I really don't think I'm going to be able to do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Not because I'm forgetting. I'm just like, I'm looking at my calendar and it's just not going to happen. And if you need me to tell you I'm going to do it, you're setting me up to lie to you, because I don't think I will.
Yeah.
Right. But then they have to be able to hear that, right? Because if you say no, you have to find a time to do it, right? You're giving your partner two bad options. Either we're going to have a fight about it right now, or agree to something that's probably not going to work out, and then we're going to have a fight about it tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I love that honest approach of just like being honest and setting the stage, saying like, it's just not feasible. I found, so I don't remember where I saw it, but this strategy of, rather than getting into like a fight in the moment of just saying, because, and I speak for myself here, but like the impulsive natures of my operating system, where I might say, respond instantly, like with my opinion or whatever, when really it should be me, at least in my opinion, it should be me taking a beat and saying, you know what, like, this sounds great, or this sounds worth exploring or discussing. Can you give me like 24 hours just to think about it or ruminate on it?
Yeah.
And then let me like get back to you on it. Just, I've got a lot on my mind right now, and I need some time to think about it. That way, like, you're kind of, I think it's not just that you're using that to procrastinate or to like just skip, as an excuse to like put it on the back burner. But I really think in that moment of you just wanting to push back or be argumentative, not wanting to, but like just naturally maybe leaning into that, it gives you a minute to just like say like, yeah, let me think about it or what have you.
Yeah, exactly. But let's also be clear, that is not procrastination, and it is not avoidance, right? This is different. And I think it's important to be clear about it. It's not, I just don't want to deal with it, whatever. It's, I am not in a position to give you the answer you're hoping for, right? If you want me to really think about this and consider it, this is not the time to do it. But also, that's not an ADHD thing. That's a person who knows themselves well thing. The ADHD thing is, okay, I'll follow up tomorrow, and then I completely forget. Right. Maybe that's an ADHD thing, but it's sort of knowing yourself well. It's sort of advocating for yourself. But I think also like that moment of grace and generosity from your partner to be like, okay, fine, I'll give you a day, I think is earned by at other times showing that you are willing to say like, okay, we'll talk about this now. Or I know this is important to you. Let me write a note. Or, like the example about, you need to make that phone call tomorrow, is hopefully we're not waiting till the very last day when there's no good option, ideally this would have come up before. Or if it's a day where maybe it's not awesome to squeeze in a phone call, but like, okay, sure, I'll do it, because if I don't, then you have to. So, okay, yeah, here I am putting it into my schedule. I've got a break at 1 for 20 minutes. So let me stick that in there with an alarm.
Yeah.
That's how you earn the pass on the day that you're like, sorry, man, just can't do it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I've put together like a new presentation and called the Root Down, and I've done it several times now, and it's 3 sections, kind of 3 pillars and the first is know yourself. The second is to respect yourself, and that includes like, loving yourself, self-awareness and all that, or self-awareness is knowing yourself. And then the third part is connecting yourself, like finding others, and I kind of developed this and strategies for each kind of section based on my own life pre-ADHD diagnosis. However, I've developed this as a way to, like, it's for audiences of all neurotypes. It doesn't matter. Yeah. However, my storyline is my diagnosis with ADHD. And so my secret behind the scenes point of the presentation, I call it like my ADHD inspired presentation to know, respect, and connect yourself, because I want everybody to be able to apply the lessons learned from it, and anybody can, but I also want to educate audiences on what ADHD is, and so that to inspire the audiences that if they see it in themselves, or they think maybe I do have ADHD, or maybe their spouse or someone, that they go and get like a formal testing from a doctor and then get the treatment they need, if they do have ADHD. And this whole thing with Wise Squirrels started as a way for me to just openly share my experiences with my diagnosis to kind of help remove stigmas and educate people and myself. And then I was inspired enough to create this presentation about it, because when I learned, and it was Russell Barkley learning about how ADHD can affect your life expectancy, untreated and undiagnosed, but life expectancy is up to 13 years, can be up to 13 years less. That kind of shifted this little passion project of Wise Squirrels to a bit of a mission for me to try to educate people through this. What are some strategies you think that would work, in your opinion, for these three pillars of like knowing yourself, respecting yourself, and then connecting yourself? So maybe knowing yourself, like, and this works for both couples or for both.
Oh yeah.
For any neurotype.
I mean, it absolutely does, right? And I do think that like knowing yourself is where it begins. And, this is the power of an accurate diagnosis, certainly ADHD, but, we can talk about other stuff too. I mean, my shoulder hurting and the PT knowing what to do is also based on, her knowing me in this case. But
yeah, sure.
What's that?
No, I said, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So like always knowing yourself is where it begins, right? Being really clear on, it's kind of like there's this one of the original books on adult ADHD was called You Mean I'm Not Lazy, Stupid, or Crazy. And it's an awesome title because it's kind of like that's what you're left with if you don't have this ADHD option as an explanation. So like understanding, this is why these things are over here, but also those things are over there. And now I can understand these contradictions and, whatever. So definitely knowing yourself, how you function best, how you don't function, how to set yourself up for better things, how to not take on things that are unlikely to work out well. So that there's that. I think the respecting yourself is, to me, it's that whole thing. It's like acting with integrity. Who do I want to be in the world? How do I want to handle myself? How do I want to be in my relationships? Which is the obvious part of I want the people around me to be able to count on me and to be able to be honest and to be able to bring things to me and all that. But also, I don't want to let people talk badly to me. Like, I don't want to be the punching bag in this relationship, or I don't want to be that friend that people are like, he's late again or whatever. Right. So like that is part of respecting yourself, right? Of sort of living and acting with integrity.
Yeah.
And then the connecting. Yeah, absolutely. We are social creatures. We do not do well when we're alone. So, having good friendships, having a good, primary romantic relationship, having good family relationships, right? And that when you know yourself well and respect yourself, you're a better person to connect with.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks. Yeah, I love it. Part of it, I talk about how our kids are 18 and 19 now, but I always raise them with the golden rule, right? Because it's like universal, all religions and non-religions alike. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It's treat people the way you want to be treated. But I had this revelation too, in sort of my own mindfulness practice and just kind of thinking through things, that a kind of light bulb moment was also, but if you treat yourself like crap, that's a problem. And it's hard to practice that golden rule of treating people the way you want to be treated if you don't care how you're treated. And I think how it connects to ADHD is with, especially undiagnosed and untreated ADHD, is that we're prone to addiction and excess. And so I went through my own bout of like drinking too much and smoking like full packs of cigarettes in one sitting back, decades ago. And I quit drinking 5 years ago. What are your thoughts on that? On excessiveness, addictions,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I sometimes say that ADHD is a disorder of reliably converting intentions into action. So intention meaning in your head, action meaning here I am doing it. Right. And even if we don't go so far as addiction, right? If we use more just mundane stuff that like, kids with ADHD more often than other kids like aren't doing the thing that some adult thinks they should be doing. Right. So kids with ADHD get a lot more sort of commands and corrections. And,
Yeah.
like,
20,000 by 10 years old, I
yeah,
believe is the number.
yeah, exactly. Right. So you're used to being treated more negatively. And
Mhm.
then, I don't know, we internalize our sense of ourself by how we're treated by others, so you become more willing to tolerate kind of negative behavior. Um, as well as sometimes, if you kind of forget to do something, you forget and you don't know what happened, but the other person knows it didn't happen, so then you can also then, be hurtful to other people, but not intentionally,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
um, and then like this plays out a million times and it just kind of becomes one of those things of like, I'm not acting like the person I want to be. I'm not being treated like the person that I want to be,
Yeah.
and this is, again, it's like, this is why that diagnosis of ADHD can be so helpful for both partners or for the whole family, by beginning to address it, beginning to change some things, and also beginning to accept some other things, right? That like, this is a thing that won't change. I wish you were better at being on time, but I know you're working at it and you're definitely less bad at it than you used to be. So like, I'm not going to ruin the night because you're 20 minutes late. Like I am making an active choice within myself to be able to be okay, even though I don't love it. I'm still slightly annoyed, but I'm going to be okay and not let that annoyance ruin my entire night here.
Yeah. Yeah. What, as far as, uh, single people, who, don't have a spouse or a partner, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and especially, I mean, I know you work with younger people as well, but I mean, a lot of the audience for this show are more like older folks like myself. Um, what are your tips and thoughts about like dating?
Yeah.
or and you see I mean, you constantly see the numbers of like and studies around how younger people are not dating anymore. Boys are
Mm-hmm.
lonely, girls are, flipping through TikTok or whatever it
Yeah.
is. I'm kind of
Yeah.
generalizing, of course, but what are your thoughts around that?
Well, but there is truth in it. I mean, at the level of group averages, there is truth in it. I mean, obviously, there's always like you are an individual within the group average, but yeah, I mean, are people are not connecting as much as they used to, and the reason is when you and I were kids, it was pretty boring to be at home. No offense, mom and dad, but like there
Yeah.
wasn't that much to do, so you got out there, right? You called your friends, you did things, you set things up. Nowadays, unfortunately, it's much more entertaining to sit by yourself.
Mm.
And that affects not only sort of friendships, but definitely also dating relationships. The dating apps are great in the sense that you can meet people you would never ever cross paths with. So that can be good. But like, holy crap, is there also a lot of bad that comes of it, and sort of impulsively, swiping people, forgetting, like losing the thread of like, oh wait, what was I saying with this person? Oh wait, no, that was the other person who has 3 dogs, so there's
Yeah.
that part of
Wow.
it.
Yeah.
And there's that whole thing of like, do you tell someone you have ADHD and at what point,
Mm. Mhm.
um so so yeah, I mean, the whole dating thing is pretty complicated.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like that's a whole
Yeah.
7 podcast series.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think sometimes I'm a big believer in the power of proximity, and that in that anytime you have, I mean, within reason, but anytime you have an opportunity to just get the hell out of the house and go somewhere, and even if you're just going to a coffee shop to work and surrounding yourself with people, I mean, there is the aspect of body doubling, like in public and things, which I find fascinating, but just like working around other people and the energy of that, I think spontaneity is something that still occurs, but it won't occur if you're sitting in your room or in your house or apartment or whatever by yourself all day.
I 100% agree with this. I say, you know, nothing happens from sitting at home. So, I mean, there's absolutely something to be said for being in person in situations like, you know, things happen that you couldn't necessarily predict. And I mean, sometimes nothing happens, but, you know, but certainly things like, you know, going to the conference or like the big ADHD conference we do every year in November, you know, like just things happen from being there. You know, random conversations, the person you're standing next to on a coffee line or you're sitting next to before the presentation begins, you know, stuff like that. Or like you said, going to the coffee shop and like somehow you bump into someone and some random idea comes up, or, you know, like there's something about you got to be there for something to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned the conference too. I haven't been yet. I've been aware of the last two, Baltimore and Anaheim, and have signed up. Hopefully, what I want to do is deliver the route down as a keynote at the conference. That's what I do. I am a keynote speaker, right? So I was a speaker for Google for like 6 years, and so that's where I do my best work, is on stages, delivering presentations, because I weave in a lot of humor, a lot of stories, but then also, you know, I'm pretty anal and diligent about not spreading misinformation, or, you know, which there is no shortage of. Thank you. Even the New York Times Magazine and NPR. Come on, guys. Like, I know. I'm a fan of the New York Times, of course, and I love NPR. I love Terry Gross and Dave Davies is great, and Planet, you know, but man, I don't know if you want to touch on that recent article that you're nodding in agreement. I wrote a long blog post article on Wise Squirrels, mainly just quoting a lot of Russell Barkley's rebuttals. Any thoughts about that? And also just the spread of misinformation across TikTok, and, you know, there's a lot of studies now that show there's a lot of just misinformation out there.
There is, and TikTok especially tends to have a lot of inaccurate information. And the problem is inaccurate information at best is not helpful. At worst is harmful. So, you know, you've got your stuff on TikTok that is just, I assume it's well-intentioned, right? Like they mean well, but that doesn't mean it's correct or helpful. And then you've got folks who really do know better and yet are actively choosing to do some, you know, to say things that are not valid and will in fact hurt people. And in general, the New York Times, you know, over these last years has had a bunch of really good articles on ADHD, right? Accurate information that benefits people's lives. I don't know what the hell happened with that big article in the New York Times Magazine. Like, I don't know how that thing slipped by, but the thing of it is, it was a really long article. This guy clearly did his research, right? This wasn't a 200-word blog post, right? He clearly did his research. He got so many things wrong, and there were so many sort of omissions, right? Things were partially said, but not, you know, the counter to it, or evidence that suggested sort of one thing was said, but evidence that very clearly undermined that argument was left out, or sort of questions were asked in a very leading, sort of provocative way, but not answered, you know, just hanging questions. It is hard for me to believe that this guy did as much research as he did and wrote the article he did without a clear intention going into the article. Before he wrote the first word, he knew where he was going, right? And I will 100% stand by that opinion of mine. I can't prove it, but that's my opinion. And the thing about it is, it hurts people to share inaccurate information. It raises questions about the validity of the diagnosis that are bogus. And it scares people away from getting a diagnosis for themselves or for their kid. It raised questions that it sort of fear-mongered about medication, and, gave these worst case scenarios, which is sort of like saying, have you seen the research on how seatbelts, people get broken bones from seatbelts? Why do we even we should get rid of seatbelts, right? Like, no, that is insane, because obviously, but this is what the article did, right? It shared only that half of the information and neglected the other half. And that if you're going to talk about the risks and side effects of a treatment, equally, you also have to talk about what are the risks and side effects of not treating. And what we know about ADHD is that the risks of untreated ADHD are far greater than the risks that come from stimulant medication. And when there are problems with the medication, most of the time it's because it wasn't prescribed well, or the accurate was, wrong or incomplete, right? It was more of a user error, which speaks to clinicians out there need better training on diagnosis and treatment. But the thing of it is, it hurts people to go without the most effective treatment, right? They are enduring additional preventable suffering when you give them reasons to doubt the most effective treatment. It was this New York Times article, 100% did this, but also, without getting political, like the, RFK Jr., the current, a cabinet member in the federal government, is raising questions and raising fears and suspicions that are 100% not backed up by science, right? Like, this should be position statements, policy statements should be backed by science when it comes to health and wellness. And in this case, they are not.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it too. I mean, I follow politics to an extent, and not to get all political, of course, but, one of my biggest concerns about it is because, there are crackpots and conspiracy theorists and things like that. And if they are in line with sort of the current administration's take on an array of different things, including, what RFK Jr. is talking about, Tommy Tuberville, as someone else,
another ADHD expert.
Yeah, who advocated about basically slapping your kids. My concern is that, like, for the people that follow things like RFK Jr. and stuff like that, and the current administration, again, not getting political, so I'm being careful here, but they tend to be more Republican types or MAGA types, perhaps. And on the other side of things, you've got more of liberal news or left-leaning news sources, like the New York Times, which is traditionally more, more left, center left, whatever. And then like NPR, which is, public broadcasting. So suddenly you've got this mass fire of misinformation coming from both sides. That's kind of what I'm driving at. And now even you could have like Fox News share the PBS or the NPR story saying, or the New York Times story saying, see, and what are like normal people who don't have time to research things because they're normal people trying to get by in life and hoping the grownups to make the right decisions. Like but
it is a weird thing, right? That in terms of RIK's stuff, you have the MAGA people on the right, you've got the crunchy libs on the left who weirdly somehow overlap on some of these topics, which is kind of a, funny and interesting thing. But like, there is a difference. If some TikToker is saying things, you have a choice to watch or not watch, to subscribe or not subscribe, or follow or whatever, right? Like that is a choice that you can make for yourself. When it's people in government, they make choices that affect you, whether you want to or not, whether you agree or not, right? Like that is how government works, right? It's also how businesses work. It's also how families work, like, whatever. But like, so I think that there's a fundamental difference in what we should expect of the people who make decisions that affect other people without their ability to change it,
Yeah.
So in that sense, I do think that government, should be held to a higher standard. I think companies also should be held to a higher standard, right? There's a difference there, that compared to, someone whose opinions you think are nonsense, you just, don't, follow them.
Yeah. Yeah. But when it's broadcast on like a popular podcast or something, that's when, problems happen. And that's the thing. And then, I'm well versed enough in technology and algorithms and AI and the understanding that, even working in broadcast television and print news back in the day, I know enough that if it bleeds, it leads. And so unfortunately, these stories that are sensationalized, but now, adding gasoline to the fire with algorithms and it's
indeed.
I want to note to wrap things up on. What do you have any questions for me at all? Anything that we didn't really get into productivity, so we might have to get you back for another episode. But any thoughts?
I mean, I think the thing that I would say is all of this stuff connects. The better you understand yourself, ADHD and otherwise, the more effective you're going to be in terms of doing the things that are important to you. Yeah. It's also going to make you a better person to live with or to be a friend of or to work with or whatever, right? So like, definitely these things connect. And the more on top of things in general you are, ADHD and otherwise, I think it also gives you a bit more credibility in dealing with other people. It also gives you a bit more, I'll just say leverage. I was trying to think of a better word, but it gives you a bit more leverage to say, you know what? I think actually I'm not going to be able to do that thing, and I'm okay with that. I'm sorry you're not okay, but I you know what? Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do it, right? Yeah. So, in other words, that you have the right to take a pass on things, which is different from forgetting to do it, procrastinating, getting the details wrong, right? That sort of ADHD didn't quite get it right sort of things. So I think that there's a lot to be gained from just being more on top of your ADHD and being more on top of your life overall.
Yeah. And being mindful, that's such a big part of this, and something that comes up a lot is meditation and mindfulness and the power of that. I'm a big believer in meditator, not like, mindfulness. I heard something today, actually listening to someone talk. It was Joseph Goldstein talking about, it was this great point. He was talking about how, this was an old interview, but he was talking about like watching a TV show, and suddenly he realized the soundtrack is what makes the show, or a movie, right? And a lot of people notice this too, that like, if you turn it on mute, it's not scary until the music's on, and then it's scary, and it's the music sets the tone, right?
Yeah.
And he used the analogy here of your thoughts, and that if you were constantly thinking of negative things, doom and gloom and all this stuff, or misinformation, whatever it is, but if you're feeding your mind with negative thoughts, those thoughts are the soundtrack to your life and to every moment. And in moments, it's not to say you should be thinking happy thoughts and be like, la, 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 like Truman Show.
Yeah.
But that, I don't know. It just really resonated with me. I thought it was a cool way to little thought practice.
Yeah. And that as much as there's sort of an automatic it'll just sort of like autopilot somehow. I think there's also something to be said for noticing it and trying to shift it.
Yes.
And then catching yourself again and shifting and catching yourself again, right? It's like
it's returning to the breath
process.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's good. Joseph
Yeah.
Goldstein talks about that all the time. It's about starting again. Like just, you
Mhm.
you try to meditate, you try to focus on your breath, and then it's time to just start again. If you get distracted, that's
Yep.
okay. That's life. That's how our minds operate. So,
Yeah,
man, this has
exactly.
been amazing, Ari. Thank you so much for joining me. How can people get a hold of you and learn more about what you do and buy those books and all that good stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. So best place really is adultadhdbook.com. That's my, books and presenting website. And I've got a bunch of information about all my books. And when I update it, some information about upcoming presentations.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, keep me posted on that. And I'm happy to share links. And I'll, of course, include links to everything we talked about. So, yeah, thanks
Cool.
for joining me.
Hey, thank you. It was good to be here. I'm glad that we could do this.
Hey, before I jump off, don't forget to go to wisesquirrels.com and enter the draw now for a copy of Ari's awesome book. You're going to love it. Thanks for tuning in to Wise Squirrels. Please make sure you follow the show so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed the show, leave a review, please, and visit wisesquirrels.com/love for bonus content, audio.
Hey, this is Dr. George Sachs, co-founder of Inflow, a proud sponsor of Wise Squirrels. If you have ADHD, you know how tough it can be to stay on top of, well, mostly everything. That's why we created Inflow, an app designed by expert clinicians and people with ADHD to help you understand your brain, build habits that actually stick, and feel less alone in the process. Get the support you need with Inflow. Head to wisesquirrels.com/inflow to check it out.
Comments that you can leave, membership information, free coaching, sponsorship details, booking information, and much more. Drop by wisesquirrels.com/love. Check out the link in the episode description below and explore now. Thanks again for listening.